Hello, welcome back to the L1 show, Links with Friends. Today's July 18th, and we're doing business and social stories to start your week.
And this episode is brought to you by Linode, as usual. Thank you, Linode.
We probably don't talk about it enough.
Yeah,
But yeah.
You
do.
can get $100 off if you've never used Linode for anything. You can run your own Tailscale instance. We've done tutorials on running your own book server. You could run your own Lemmy instance to get away from all of the social media madness we're about to cover.
one-click game server installs, which a friend of mine actually used our code, and he was like, it's actually really good. And I was like,
And you can tailor how much horsepower you want.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's
The
nice.
Minecraft people were needing a lot of horsepower.
yeah.
But some stuff doesn't, and some of the little projects, you can get away with those little nanos.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good pricing.
Yeah.
Especially if you just want a little VPN.
Yeah, yeah. You can run your own Tailscale instance on it too. So you can use the Tailscale control plane and you just hit a button, but all your exit traffic flows out of Linode. So it's pretty cool.
It's a shame that you need that, but you do. Now today, as we're filming this, not the same day that you're watching it, secrets. Today is actually the 14th for us, which happens to be the deadline for the Microsoft Activision merger. If they didn't get it done by today, then each party would be able to back out without a financial penalty, which is why this week there was a lot of effort. And unfortunately, I mean, I don't know if I should say unfortunately, but
Probably
it seems a
unfortunately.
little anti-consumer that at the very last minute,
Microsoft won its FTC fight to buy Activision Blizzard. Not just they won, the judge also said, hey, we see that you want a temporary restraining order even though you lost the case, FTC, and that was also denied.
they wanted that because it would push the deadline. Like the restraining order would push things beyond the deadline, which would make things more uncertain. The FTC was very, very hurt that they could not get this done. The temporary injunction, like you said, the emergency injunction was cast out, but there is still more to come.
U.S. asks appeals court to pause Microsoft deal to after lower court refuses. So this is, again, just maneuvering.
How many palms do you think they're greasing to just let this slide through?
I mean, an unlimited amount, but it seems like the FTC top brass it's not happening with them.
Yeah.
Or they're not accepting it or whatever.
I'm honestly kind of torn. Okay, I'm not really torn. Like, this is probably bad for consumers. It seems obvious that it's bad for consumers to the point that it's difficult to formulate arguments. But from a business standpoint, it makes sense, which is why they want to do this. Consolidation, control, fewer things in the market, fewer companies able to do AAA titles mean that you can get away with charging $70 for a game because what else are you going to do?
And then $20 for a skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even play any of their games anymore. They don't appeal to me. There's so much better stuff, but I still think I'm siding on with the FTC,
Yeah.
which is a rarity.
I think that like Monster Train might be one of the best deck builders I've ever played.
What are they thinking with those DLC prices?
I know. Yeah.
Also, they just released, I think it was those developers who released another game, and it is just dripping with monetization.
They didn't need to do that.
I don't know.
They're looking at the Blizzard Activision thing is my point and saying we need to
Everyone
fix
else
this.
is doing it, yeah.
But
Not just Blizzard.
my favorite thing about the FTC Activision Microsoft thing is how many government employees and official records now heavily discuss Call of Duty. Yeah, it's got to be the first time a lot of those people's heard of that. Right?
I feel like that game was huge, though. Even before I was really into PC gaming, like I had heard of Call of Duty Nazi zombies.
Yeah, but we're talking about octogenarians here.
That's true.
Was this kind of thing a thing in the 1920s or 30s when board games existed? Like when somebody invented Monopoly, was it this much consternation?
I don't know if there was a lot of M&A in the board game world.
Like Milton Bradley is like sent a team of assassins to,
I'm sure there's a good story on this.
Yeah, someone will tell us in the comments if that's a thing.
Now that's arguably bad news. We're going to get less choice in our gaming, but this I think is objectively good news. So for once, a little of that.
Massachusetts considers ban on sale of phone location data. Now the companies will creatively bundle that data for free in other purchases. No, Massachusetts is looking at this and they're saying, wait, you mean our VHS rental records are more protected under the law than your literal 24/7 location at all times? That seems weird.
And we've also covered story after story. Every level of law enforcement, from the FBI down, uses this. It's a lazy tactic. It's a huge privacy violation, and it would be illegal if the government did it. So that seems like a pretty easy bar to see that this is something we shouldn't have.
And yet,
And the FTC, a big L for them. And they've actually had quite a few recently. And Lena Khan, she's new, a lot of eyes on her. A lot of people are saying this might be her fault.
FTC chair defends tenure as lawmakers battle over consumer agencies' impact. This is an interesting way to weaponize what she's done, I think, because she hasn't been very effective. She is pointing out things that need attention, but in doing it this way, it almost turns the things that she's trying to draw attention to into caricatures of what the problems actually are.
But, I mean, I guess you could say that she's bad at bringing the cases.
Yes,
right?
some of the legal arguments were really bad.
But identifying the problems, although the problems are really easy to identify.
Yeah.
Like that part of her job, not difficult.
and yet, in the past, when we've had other people, they'd refuse to identify them because they're like, it's not a
Well,
problem at all.
I mean, they knew.
Yeah, but they didn't bring it up.
So she is fighting a battle against an entrenched corporate power structure.
Well, here's an easy way. Like our audience has used Amazon probably longer than most other audiences. Do you think Amazon is objectively more or less useful today than it was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
But again, identifying the problem, not that hard.
Well, no, the lawmakers that eviscerated her were saying things like, how Amazon does business is obviously not a problem if you are not able to, it's not as obvious of a problem as you're saying if you are not able to immediately.
Is that those lawmakers, though, just kind of
Yes.
arguing in bad faith because they're probably
No,
being paid?
It's them reading what Amazon wrote for them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We both got there.
I would say that it's bad faith, but yeah, that's exactly what's happening.
And some more slam dunks where it's easy to recognize when things are wrong when you're in government.
Democrats call on the DOJ to investigate tax sites for sharing financial information with Meta. This isn't just the like pixel.
Log in with your Facebook account to do your taxes now.
Well, the forms that the pixel was on had really, really identifying information.
Yeah.
So all of that was going to them.
I wonder if there's a data analyst inside Meta that's like, wait, that's in our unstructured table? They're furiously writing a query to go pull that information out.
They have stopped, which is pretty damning, right? Like, oh, well, we don't do that anymore. Well, then you knew it was wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I'd say we'll probably see a similar level of change come from that. And our other government agencies, weirdly, the FTC seems to be able to accomplish nothing. And yet this agency pretty much does whatever they want.
You can say no to a TSA face scan, but even a senator had trouble. So the TSA it's like this is through Reagan. It's like, hey, you want to do a face scan? No, not particularly. Well, it's going to cause you to miss your flight. Oh, really?
Yeah, they have to be manually.
Do you know who I am? And then they were like, oh, sorry, sir. Continue along.
Man.
Yeah.
Some of them also said, like, when they would ask about, oh, I don't want to do it, it's like, no, it's required.
Yeah, but it's not
Some of the
actually required.
airports. Yeah.
Well, it kind of is, actually.
Yeah, it's technically not required, but the way that they've implemented it, it is required.
But I'm sure those, ground level agents that you're working with are trained that it is required.
Yeah.
So functionally makes it required, right?
This is very surprising to me.
This was a big one, and this is another loss for the government. Man, the U.S. government is really feeling it. You know what? That's probably the smoke.
We're all just out, even though the smoke's not been a thing for like a week.
They can't operate effectively.
Ripple's open market sales of XRP cryptocurrency aren't securities, court rules in a landmark decision. This is amazing for a lot of reasons, but this is probably a good sign for things to come for Coinbase as well.
30% gain. I think I've got a little XRP. I haven't checked on it in a while. But they made the arguments that were like, yeah, the way that you've defined securities, this really didn't match that. I don't think anybody was buying this thinking they weren't getting some rando cryptocurrency. These were crypto bros taking a chance. I agree with this one. Even though cryptocurrency is not something that you should trust.
Although we'll have another headline later where a library is shutting down. The LBRY, that's like, oh, the SEC, they lost their court case.
Meanwhile, Z Library out there
Yeah.
just doing what they want. Of course, they lost their court case too. They just don't care. And here's a problem that we have. Once again, some government agencies, they just can't get the job done. Other government agencies, they just do whatever they want. In this case, even if it's illegal.
Sacramento Sheriff is sharing license plate reader data with anti-abortion states, records show. So this is really, really, like, this is the kind of insidious thing that we warned technology could be used for since time immemorial. And this is just the latest example. And yeah, look at that. Exactly what we said would happen happened.
But once again, we're arguing it on this one issue when that shouldn't be the argument. The argument should be no one should be subject to this.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have the thing in place to be abused by the worst people.
Yeah, there's no, as long as this database exists, this kind of thing will happen, legal or not.
Yeah.
We must not have it. It must be destroyed, and we must police against it from now on.
Can you imagine how different the world would be if your driver's license to query whether or not it was valid it just depended on like your local county or your local municipality? If you were, on the border and they had to query and they had to get some podunk records clerk to verify, that would be great. That'd be fabulous.
Well, ultimately, that might not be something that matters in the medium-term future because you'll be living in your pod, you'll be eating your bugs, and you will definitely not own a car.
U.S. to decide on GM request to deploy self-driving cars. This is a weird one because GM submitted this, and then the National Highway Traffic Safety people ignored it, and then they withdrew it, and now they're submitting it again. They're only asking for 2,500 cars.
Wasn't it
a
like
year.
Sacramento or somewhere? I thought it was like one city.
But the difference here is, you're saying, well, we've already got this in Phoenix, and I think Sacramento's the other one.
Yeah.
The difference here is these cars will have no pedals, no steering wheels. They won't even have windshield wipers because the cameras are on the outside.
What if a human needs to take control?
That's not going to happen.
Doesn't happen.
Never happen. I don't know if I trust that, but
This doesn't say that they're going to be passenger or non-passenger, but I would strongly suspect mostly there's going to be non-passenger. Think like delivery vehicles.
Maybe. Yeah.
Like a Walmart logistics truck where it's going to go from Walmart A to Walmart B and it doesn't need to do anything else.
How long until we
couldn't
see?
it still hit someone though? Like,
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah.
totally.
You know what we're gonna see? We're gonna see like people on razor scooters hanging onto the back of these.
it's a hop on.
Yeah.
You're going to get some hop ons.
There was a lot of dystopian science fiction where exactly that kind of thing was happening.
I mean, people do that
Yeah.
with like trucks and skateboards and stuff, and especially you ever see in like India where there'll be like 20 guys on a truck, and the truckers are always trying to shake them off because they don't know if they're hijacking or not.
It's like, no, I'm not here to rob you. I just need a ride. So, okay.
And another corporate win this week. My God, they sure have a good record. But this one actually is probably good because this was definitely an unhinged individual. However, the penalty, as usual, very disappointing.
Bungie wins landmark lawsuit against player who harassed Destiny staff. But this also is a win where employers can take steps to protect employees from online harassment. So this was somebody who was harassing a Destiny employee or a Bungie employee.
It was
over
the community manager.
Yeah. So
Now you might be thinking, well, Destiny sucks. They deserve to be harassed. They're bad at their jobs. That's not what it was about. It was the worst possible scenario where he was upset that
The community manager posted a piece of fan art that had, I think it was like one of the characters was black.
No,
And
I
that
think it was
person
the
upset.
artist. Was
Oh,
black.
okay.
And they were like, doing the diversity thing, which, whatever. But then his response to that was like, I want a Destiny mode where I can only kill black people.
But then he like sent pizzas to their house and instructed the pizza man to like angrily knock, and like it was really, really unhinged.
He has also harassed other companies in similar ways. He definitely spends a lot of time with online games.
penalty was a $500,000.
I thought it was community service.
Oh, maybe he got to stay.
I think it was like 4 years of community service. Maybe I'm thinking of a different story. Either way, it wasn't enough. Should have been jail time for that.
Yeah, he tried to backtrack too after like he realized they were onto him. There's Discord messages where he's like, "No, it was someone else named Brian." And it's like we all know it's you. Okay.
And maybe the biggest win for the corporate world this week. My God, is there something special happening that is there something like, oh, it's the middle of the year, so we have to give you.
Well, we did just have the NATO summit.
I did wonder if this was related.
Well, Well, bad news for you Euros.
Big tech can transfer Europeans' data to US in a big win for Facebook and Google, according to Ars Technica. And you unpack the headline and yeah, this basically will put a stop to member states' thing where they're just like, oh, look at this thing you violated, give us money.
Now you're wondering, well, what changed? Isn't GDPR and the new EU Privacy Act, isn't that all going to conflict with this? Well, they made a deal with the US government, and the US government promised that we won't use it in the wrong way. So it's all good.
We got you, fam.
And there's going to be more bureaucracies tacked onto this. There's going to be a new committee that
thank
overlooks
goodness.
this kind of thing. A committee of people who don't understand it.
How cool would it be if, like, in the Meta office, there's one guy who's technically an employee of the European Union, and he just, shows up to work whenever, and it's like, oh yeah, I don't work for Meta. I just have all access to all of Meta's stuff, and I'm from the European Union. I can look at anything.
Well, we know for a fact that CIA has that.
I mean, what? That would be pretty cool.
Would it?
Well, I mean,
And central bank digital currencies, we've gone along the timeline of conspiracy theory. Well, maybe it's for the best. So now we're at the end game here, but people peskily still don't trust it.
Privacy fears dominate launch of digital euro plan. This is great. Here in America, we're too stupid to know that this is really bad. Whereas in Europe, people apparently fear for their privacy, which is amazing that they're clued in enough to worry about that.
My favorite thing about this is, I can't remember, but they were like, yeah, people are so afraid of this that what they did was they blanketed all of the newspapers and stuff with articles explaining how great it is. So like what? It's propaganda.
Yeah.
Politico, you're celebrating the fact that they're propagandizing their citizens. That's a good thing in your mind?
But more importantly, European citizens were clued into the fact that it's propaganda. We totally don't have that here. At least only...
I think some people are clued in, but maybe not as many as you would hope.
Oh, here we go.
Only the 12 people that watch us.
Distributed opinion articles in 17 newspapers across the block talking up the digital euro's benefits and what safeguards will be put in place.
Oh, those are all different opinions, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're from different people who all got paid a small portion, I'm sure.
There isn't anything inherently wrong with a central digital currency, but our track record for not screwing it up is basically zero.
You could say that about any of the tech we talk about.
You're so wrong. There is something about centralization that is bad, which is a single point of failure.
Yeah.
Cash doesn't have that.
Yeah. It runs in parallel really well. That is true.
When's the last time you used cash to pay for something?
My lawn guy. So he might not be paying taxes. And here, this one also sounds good. Everybody wants this, right?
Yeah.
Everybody who doesn't work for a phone manufacturer wants this. But after all of what we've just seen, I question whether we'll ever see it.
Yeah.
I see this because the timeline is so far. How long do these industry groups have to tear this down?
It's official. Smartphones will need to have replaceable batteries by 2027.
I went to a darker place where they'll come up with some fake new battery that's like, oh, it's really, really good and super efficient, but it just dies really fast. So you have to replace it more often, and it's more expensive because it has new components in it.
That new super Toyota battery. They'll be like, well, with this technology, we don't need to replace them ever.
Or no, I'm thinking they'll say, oh yeah, you can replace it, but it's really, really expensive because this new battery tech is so expensive.
What if they, this is what I'm really, so the batteries wear out after 2,000, 3,000 charge cycles. What if after this goes into effect, all of a sudden these batteries start lasting 10,000, 20,000 charge cycles?
Yeah, that's they're just going to make it worse. That's
And then
the easiest way.
Apple will be like, we had no idea.
Yeah. So we had a breakthrough in battery technology. You don't need to replace it now.
You know what? If you give us some government subsidies, we'd probably get it better than this.
And then they go back to 1,000 charge cycles and you're just replacing them like AA batteries.
Ugh.
And this is, where people argue about well, it doesn't matter that we're changing the meaning of words. It doesn't matter that we're saying something that used to mean one thing now means something else. That's just the evolution of our species. It's just where society is going. No, it's very important that definitions be rigid because you get stuff like this.
Amazon claims that it isn't a, quote, very large online platform to evade EU rules. So the EU rules are basically, if you're, doing $100 million a year of business, you're going to have to follow these more stringent rules. And Amazon is saying, well, we don't, that's not
You're
us.
just targeting us. But then it's like, well, Alibaba got caught in this. Like, they're a Chinese company. They're not just targeting you.
Also, I love the acronym FLOP.
There are 19 companies targeted.
It's all like major.
And Amazon's like, this
Tech
is not
companies.
fair. We're not that large.
Also, 5 of them are Google.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a bunch of others are Meta. Yeah.
Amazon's argument seems to center around the fact that it's like, well, you don't go after other e-commerce platforms, and we are just that.
But
just
Alibaba
e-commerce.
got caught in it. So it's like, it's such a bad argument.
They didn't mention that.
They did an article.
But through their review system and their like Prime Video and all that stuff, there is user interaction. People post things.
Yeah. Reviews.
I said that, user reviews.
Yeah.
And another one, apparently the industry groups weren't just busy in America. They've been busy in the EU as well. And a lot of the comments in the videos when we talk about these horrible chemicals or health problems or whatever, there's a lot of self-righteous EU people. It's like, yeah, that's why we don't allow it over here. Well, guess what?
EU is going to drop its ban of hazardous chemicals after industry pressure.
That's such a bummer for me because sometimes if I'm not sure about a certain pesticide I'm using in my garden, I'll check to see if it's banned in the EU. And it's like, sometimes that's kind of like a good guideline.
So
Alas.
somehow this negotiation gets to the point where the industry group presents guidelines and the government presents guidelines and they sort of settle. And it goes from 1% to 10% to 50%. Those are big jumps.
Those are big jumps.
And apparently we're looking like we're going to get the 1%. The 1% are going to decide on the 1%.
I wonder if this plan sets up some kind of a super fund for cleanup, like an insurance policy. Like, oh, something went catastrophically wrong. Oh, we'll use the insurance policy to clean that up.
You'd think that the company who manufactures those chemicals would have that, but no.
But you wouldn't have to clean it up if it's not on the ban list. So that's still a win. It's still a massive win.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, we spilled a bunch of stuff, but it's perfectly safe. Look at the law.
This guy's growing a third head. That's fine.
It's unrelated. That was an existing condition. And Russia is on the bandwagon. They are not the first to do it, but they are close to the first and probably the biggest at this point.
Cointelegraph has the headline, Russian parliament passes a digital ruble bill.
What an odd image.
That's because they're having some economic problems right now. That's got to be AI generated, right?
I
Interestingly,
think it might be hand-drawn.
their version of it is not something that you can hold. You can only transact it and store it in your bank like real money. I guess the banks are afraid. Because if you could just hold it in a wallet, you don't need to use a bank.
You can just hoard it.
Eventually, the banks don't matter. And then that's when they turn you off and we get the worst possible scenario. And they're not alone. Some other names that are not quite as big are definitely on board.
24 central banks will have a digital currency by 2030, survey shows. Yeah, this is all the worst things. They're even saying some of the quiet parts out loud now.
We've got Bahamas, Eastern Caribbean, Jamaica, Nigeria, and they don't list them all. But
They'll
there's
probably
several
do
more.
if you sign in for free at Reuters.com.
Never. And here's an interesting headline where you literally just cut and paste one country name with another one because the same thing happened here in the good old US of A.
TikTok executive admits Australian users' data accessed by employees in China. Yeah, that's where the backups go. You need an offsite backup. It's going to China.
Is that even a little bit of a surprise? Like I read this headline and was like, yeah, okay.
Now, according to TikTok, those people have been fired. That was just a one-time thing. Doesn't happen. Don't worry.
Next week, TikTok data.
Although they did admit that there still is a process that the Chinese leadership can go through, but it's very difficult and there's lots of records and don't worry, it doesn't get abused.
Definitely not. Definitely not abused.
And, TikTok's a terrible thing, but all social media is really, I don't know if I really think it's a national security threat, but it's a fun sort of boogeyman to throw around.
Majority of Americans say that TikTok is a threat to U.S. national security. I don't think that's really true.
Well, it's true depending on your age group. The older you are, the more likely you are to say, I don't like TikTok, whatever.
Also politically.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it was like 18 to 24, though. I think it was like maybe 20% thought it was maybe a bad thing.
But it is something that you can just not do.
Right.
So maybe just not do it. And TikTok, maybe the worst thing about it, well, no, I guess the worst thing probably is the Chinese spying. But a close second is the trends, all the challenges that make people hurt one another and steal cars, and the desperate need to get more viewers, which will cause people to do really stupid things.
Ohio plastic surgeon loses medical license after TikTok live stream. She was live streaming complications from surgeries.
She was literally talking. So I was like, it can't be that bad. Because I follow like skincare doctors and stuff. And like they'll talk, but they talk very vaguely about past patients and the issues they've had. She was literally like talking to the camera as she was performing liposuction in one of these videos.
Yeah, and several of those people had post-op major issues.
Yeah.
And it was the surgeries that were done during the live streams. So they didn't just take her license for the TikTok thing. It was more about the horrible, horrible accusations of these people have lifelong problems now.
Yeah, it wasn't that she was talking about her cases. It was that she was talking about her cases as they were ongoing.
And maybe not focusing.
Elbow deep
Yeah.
inside of someone
It's like,
doing surgery.
I should not have nicked that.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
In a couple of states, I think it was Montana, Texas, North Dakota, I think, has banned TikTok. But some people, they got to have the talk, and they can't stand that.
Texas's TikTok ban has been hit with a First Amendment lawsuit. Okay. I wonder if this is going to lead to you can sideload applications on iOS in America.
Well,
Keep that dream alive.
there's an interesting argument from security researchers here with stuff like it's literally illegal for me to look at what TikTok is doing now. So that doesn't seem like a good idea. How will we know what they're up to? Because now we literally can't use it, but other people can in the next state over. And Krista, I know one of your favorite things is ads at the gas pump.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Such a good idea.
We have seen so many industries that are looking to incorporate that into their own products. The latest is Redbox.
Redbox and TikTok set deals for videos to stream on 3,000 kiosks. I was about to say, is Redbox still a huge thing? But I do still see them at like Dollar Generals.
There were 3,000 kiosks.
Yeah.
Apparently.
I mean, really rural people with a crappy internet or who just don't understand streaming and all that, they're big Redbox users.
Redbox was popular in my little town when I lived there like almost 10 years ago now. But I don't know that it's still huge because so many people stream.
The weird thing about this, though, to me is while you're at the Redbox kiosk, you should be choosing a film, right?
Right. Or usually you go and you have one in mind about what you want to get.
But instead, you're just standing there, open mouth, staring at the TikTok videos, blocking access to the Redbox.
Or like, yeah, it's like, oh, you have to watch an ad before you can actually make your selection. So then you end up with a line. Like, it's just a bad experience.
But then maybe other people see that and they're like, oh, what's going on over here? Maybe I should be a part of this. Redbox has got it going on.
Oh, it's an ad. Ew. Gross. Store.level1text.com.
And moving on to social media, the big story in social media continues to be, other than Reddit, Threads.
Instagram's Threads surpasses 100 million users. And then everyone left.
So there's a story right after this, isn't there? Did you sort it that way?
But this was record breaking.
I was, yeah.
Not even ChatGPT was able to do that. However, maybe not everybody who signed up stuck around.
Meta Threads engagement has dropped off since its red hot debut, tracking firms say.
Although even with this headline, it's still, I think, a major success. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Can't really.
I think if it had more features, people would stick around with it. I've heard some people complain like, oh, it doesn't have like DMs or like some things are a little buggy still, but I imagine they'll get that ironed out.
They clearly rolled this out early
Yeah.
to take advantage of.
I wonder if Mark Zuckerberg is psyching himself up in the mirror like, I'm back. I'm almost back.
He's putting on red lipstick.
And if you're someone who's just signed up for Threads and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, I'm cool, I'm part of the in crowd, There's no drawback to this. Well, it's a surveillance tool, and you must always remember that.
Yeah. After Meta hands over DMs, mom pleads guilty to giving daughter abortion pills. This is exactly as horrible as you might imagine. This was a later term abortion. It was like 40 weeks.
No,
or
it wasn't.
36
It
weeks.
was 20.
20 something.
Yeah.
Halfway. Yeah. That's right. So, but it's still like, this isn't good.
It was enough that there was something
Yeah.
that.
But that can be true even very early on.
Yeah.
Oh, Krista, you know that you don't have to argue pro-abortion for me. No one is more pro-abortion than me. But that was part of the thing, is like the charges they brought weren't just for this.
Yeah.
It was also improperly disposing of a corpse.
Yeah.
Which seems like just,
Well, again, if you cut off healthcare, what do you think people are going to do? Like,
this is never not going to be traumatic.
yeah.
It's disgusting.
It was, I think too, they mentioned like it was reported that the girl had a stillbirth. So like imagine a scenario too where like maybe you didn't get an abortion, you just had a stillbirth. And it's like, well, now I can't even Google what do I do with this because maybe I'll get arrested. Like,
Yeah, it is this sort of thing like when you have a crisis, you must come to us. There is no alternative. There's no way for you to deal with this in your own way. And that's very un-American.
yeah.
At
Well,
the
even
same
just like,
time-
even though like your doctor, like you can't even talk to your doctor about it because what if your doctor reports you?
A lot of people do throw away babies. I mean, that's also a problem. There's nuances to this. But I think what you should take away from it is don't use these surveillance services. At
Be
least,
afraid of what you Google, be afraid of what you message people. Like,
or go to linode.com, get yourself a solid VPN with no logs because you're the one who's setting up the logging.
Just imagining a world where looking up things in the encyclopedia or looking up things at the library, and it's like, oh, they were looking for this at the library, and it's like, this is a very dark timeline.
They knock on your door
we're
and they're
probably already there. Like,
like, sir, we had reports that you bought a D encyclopedia on eBay. You know that's not valid. You cannot have that in your home. And Reddit continues to have their issues. It seems like very slowly the resistance is falling. But some pockets remain, and they are being dealt with extreme prejudice.
Reddit mods fear spam overload as BotDefense leaves antagonistic Reddit. So this is another data point that maybe Reddit had no idea what they were doing, because moderation access for APIs, you want to charge those people for your API as well? How about they just nope out and you deal with the chaos of all that?
the bot accounts have been getting worse and worse.
I love how the spam brand has never suffered anything. They're associated with the most undesirable thing in most people's lives every day. And they're like, yeah, you're still going to eat it.
Yeah.
We don't care. That's free advertising every day for us.
Thanks, Monty Python.
Another community that has never come back, and I don't know that it ever will, is the canning subreddit. So I was going to look up like what strawberry jam should I make, like what variation, and I was like, let's see which one's the best. And I went to our canning and it's still shut down.
Let me tell you, sourcing nonsense stories,
Yeah.
a way bigger
Difficult,
challenge because
yeah.
those communities, several of them have shut down. And there are some hangers on. There was military D&D memes.
D&D memes was amazing because the Reddit people posted a final warning and somebody replied to it with roll for initiative.
Well, these last little pockets of resistance, and it seems that Reddit is really finally to bring the hammer down on all of it.
Reddit gives its final warning to subreddits using the not safe for work protest tactic. It's like, all right, we're just going to fire everybody and take over. It's like, well, good luck.
That seems chaotic evil.
I wonder if the shareholders of the people that have a monetary interest in Reddit are looking around at the behavior of their executive team thinking, maybe this was a mistake.
I think they were on board with it originally because Reddit sold it to them as, this is how we start generating revenue for you.
Yeah, we can start advertising more if we have more control.
It seems
What?
like they have only succeeded in devaluing their company substantially.
But people are still on Reddit.
Yeah.
I mean, people, it's like TikTok, right? It's too much of an addiction. People can't give it up.
Well, and some stuff you can only find on Reddit. Like, I want to look for reviews of canning recipes that are also safe. If I look up just random canning recipes on Reddit or on Google, it's just going to be some lady's recipe blog where it's like, yeah, and then I threw some oysters in there. And it's like, no, you don't can that
Do
with
they
water bath.
do like the recipe blogs where it's also like 50 paragraphs.
Oh
before you
yeah,
get to
like
the
I went to my grandmother's farm and I picked some delicious sweet strawberries. I'm like, I don't care.
pictures of their kids.
Yeah, I just want to hear your recipe.
And finally, it seems that Twitter is recognizing that there are threats and their business model has suffered incredibly in the last little bit. So they need to do something to keep the power users on Twitter.
Twitter starts sharing ad revenue with verified creators, leading to a lot of fake screenshots.
Now you have to have 5 million impressions each month, which is a pretty high bar.
That does seem high.
But if you can get that, they will pay pretty well. Some people are claiming they're getting as much as $25,000.
I think that can't be real.
I also don't think that's real.
I don't know. Some of these Twitter accounts have massive, massive numbers.
But Twitter's already hemorrhaging money. I can't imagine them making that payout.
He's not a man who seems to be a fan of that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
We'll have
But-
more stories about that later.
But that's exactly what Twitch did, right? Like, let's make a rule that only benefits the top of the top.
Right.
And keep them happy and keep the plebs coming back.
And that rule is just 70-30, which is still, should be more like 95-5.
What is this like? It's like 5%, I think. Which would make you think that Twitter's making a lot of money from ads.
Yeah.
If these numbers are valid.
It seems like, I would question that because like Unilever pulled back way, way hard on Twitter ads. And as a result, like bots have filled in the gaps, and it's been a bloodbath. If you still run ads on Twitter, they're absolutely worthless.
But maybe not if you're a creator.
Yeah.
Take the money while you can. It might be a dying service.
Fun times.
All right. We'll see you in the next one.
We got so much more stuff tomorrow.